There is a lavender in your yard right now that looks like a gray wire brush. Green at the tips, bare and woody underneath, and about a third of it never came back this spring. You did not neglect that plant. That is the part nobody says out loud. You almost certainly killed it with kindness. You watered it, you fed it, you mulched it for the winter, and every one of those was the wrong move. The University of Illinois puts it in one line. It is dampness, more than cold, that kills lavender. 9 things. Number 6 is advice you have been given by everybody, and it is wrong. Number 4 is why your plant has a bald patch that is never going to fill in. And number 1 is not something you do. It is something you stop doing. Number 9, and it is the single habit that will save you the most lavender. Turn the tag over and read the Latin name. I know how that sounds. Stay with me. It costs nothing and explains more dead lavender than everything else here put together. 3 lavenders in the trade. They are not interchangeable, and the tag will not tell you that. Lavandula angustifolia is English lavender. Missouri Botanical Garden rates it zones 5 to 8. That is your baseline, and the 2 varieties extension services name over and over are Munstead and Hidcote. Lavandula stucus is the pretty one, little rabbit ears standing up on each flower head, always the best looking plant on the rack in April. North Carolina State rates it zones 8 and 9. 8 and 9. In zone 6, that plant is an annual, and always was. It looks magnificent until Christmas. It does not come back, and you assume you did something wrong. And it gets worse. NC State files Stoechus under the common name French lavender. Half the garden centers call it Spanish and say French for a different species. The common names are unreliable. The Latin is not. Third one, with its own trap. Lavandula X, intermedia. The Lavendanes, grosso and phenomenal. Big plants, 3 feet across, grown for oil. Tougher in heat and humidity, and NC State lists phenomenal for the hot coastal south. But tougher does not mean hardier. And here, the marketing gets ahead of the science. You will see phenomenal advertised as hardy to zone 4. I went looking in the university sources, and it is not there. Missouri Botanical Garden says lavandin is not reliably hardy throughout zone 5. Iowa State is sharper still. English lavender is reliably zone 5. Lavandin only in a protected spot. So the zone 4 claim traces to nursery copy, not to anybody who tested it. A woman came in 3 springs running, somewhere around 2009 and the 2 years after, and bought the same rabbit-eared lavender every April. Same plant, same spot by her front step, same question the following May. Nobody had told her to turn the tag over. She did nothing wrong except buy a zone 8 plant in zone 6, 3 times. So, flip the tag, find the second word. Match it against your zone before it goes in the cart. Number 8. Space them out, much further than you want to. People get this wrong because lavender looks so good in a tight row, and every photograph of a lavender field has them shoulder to shoulder. Those fields are in Provence, where the summer air is dry. Illinois Extension names the mechanism plainly. High humidity and poor air circulation between the plants leads to decline. Not humidity on its own. Humidity plus still air trapped in a crowded row. Oregon State gives numbers. At least 2 to 3 feet between plants and 3 to 6 feet between rows. 2 to 3 feet, for a plant that is a foot wide when you buy it. It looks sparse and wrong for 2 summers, then exactly right for 15 years. The trade every gardener has to learn to make, and almost nobody makes the first time. I planted a row of 9 along a south wall when I first had the house. 9 plants in about 12 feet, because that is what looked right in the photograph I had in my head. Somewhere around 2005, they started going one at a time from the middle outward, and I replaced them one at a time for 3 years before I understood that the row was the problem and not the plants. There is a second half to this that costs nothing. Lavender wants sun, full, open, unshaded sun, and air that moves, a slope, a corner where a breeze crosses, the open side of a drive, all good. One exception, and it cuts the other way. A warm south-facing wall is the one sheltered spot genuinely worth having, especially if you garden cold. Utah State says English lavender will come through a Zone 4 winter grown in a south-facing location. The stored heat and the rain shadow off the brick do real work. A wall at its back is fine. A dead air pocket between the wall and 3 other shrubs is not. And do not plant it in among things that flop over it in July. Hosta, or a big geranium leaning across the crown for 6 weeks in high summer, does exactly what a crowded row does. It holds still, damp air against the base of the plant at the worst possible time of year. Give it air. That is the whole of number 8. Number 7. Take the bark mulch away from the base of the plant and put stone there instead. This is the one I would call an actual secret, because almost nobody does it, and the sources are unanimous. Illinois, extension, lavender likes to be mulched with inorganic mulches such as rock or pea gravel, because it keeps the crown dry and prevents excess moisture causing foliage disease. Missouri Botanical Garden says the same thing and says it twice on 2 different lavender pages. To combat high humidity, consider using rock instead of organic mulch. And Iowa State gives you the reason from the other direction. Heavy mulches hold moisture and promote rot. Think about what bark mulch is designed to do. It holds water at the soil surface and it slowly rots into the ground, which is exactly right for a hosta and exactly wrong for a plant from a Mediterranean hillside. You have built a damp sponge and set the crown of a dry country shrub down in the middle of it. Pea gravel does the opposite. Water runs through it, the sun hits the stone and dries the surface fast, and the crown stays dry after rain instead of sitting wet for 2 days. How much and where? A couple of inches of pea gravel or crushed stone, out to about the spread of the plant, and pulled back an inch or 2 so it is not packed hard against the stems themselves. You are not sealing anything in. You are giving water somewhere to go and the sun something to heat. It also does a second job people do not expect. Rain splashing off bare soil throws soil and fungal spores up onto the lower leaves, and that is a real route by which foliage disease gets going. To be fair, any mulch interrupts that. Bark would do it too. What bark cannot do is stay dry. NC State goes further and says avoid heavy organic mulches around lavender altogether, because they increase both fungal and insect trouble, and suggests an inch or 2 of white sand instead. One honest note, because it matters where you live. Colorado State is happy with fine bark mulch around lavender, but Colorado is dry. East of the Mississippi, in real summer humidity, the gravel is not a refinement. It is the difference. Number 6. You have been told lavender needs alkaline soil and you should sweeten the ground with lime. That is not right, and I want to take it apart carefully because it is repeated absolutely everywhere. Here are actual numbers from people who published them. Utah State's Commercial Growing Guide, which is written for people whose income depends on it, 6 to 8. Now think about what that range covers. 6 to 8 is most garden soil in America. There is no exotic requirement here. Lavender is not a plant that demands chalk. It is a plant that will sit happily in ordinary ground. Iowa State is the one extension that mentions lime, and read the sentence properly. Adding lime can help if soils are too acidic. If conditional. And there's only one way to know whether yours is, and that is a soil test. Your county extension office will run one for a few dollars, and it will tell you where you actually stand. Dumping lime in on faith does two things. It might do nothing, which is the good outcome, or it pushes an already fine soil up past 8, and now you have created a nutrient problem the plant did not have before. Here is what I think happened with this piece of advice. Lavender likes sharp drainage. Chalky, limey ground happens to drain sharply. Somebody looked at a healthy lavender growing on chalk and joined two facts into one instruction, and the wrong one got the credit. The drainage was doing the work. The lime was just standing next to it. You see the same error all over gardening. Somebody notices two things in the same place and decides one caused the other, and 30 years later, it is on every packet. If your test does come back genuinely acidic, below 6, then yes, lime, and follow the rate on the bag rather than guessing. Otherwise, put the money toward a bag of grit and improve the drainage instead. That is the thing the plant actually asked for. Number 5. Whatever you do to a lavender, do not do it in the autumn. Illinois Extension is explicit, and I will read it to you as they wrote it. Do not cut back plants in the fall. Wait until new growth starts to appear in the spring before doing any pruning. Purdue says the same and gives the reason. Lavender is marginally hardy through much of the country, so you wait until growth begins in spring. Oregon State puts a date on it, after all chance of frost has passed. Two things wrong with an autumn cut. The first is that cutting stimulates growth. You take the shears to it in October. The plant soft new shoots in response, and those meet the first hard frost with no time to toughen up. You have manufactured the damage. The second is the one people never think about. Winter kills some wood on a lavender. That is normal. And in March, you cannot tell live from dead until growth actually starts. Cut in November and you are guessing, and you will end up doing the job twice. NC State adds the other half. Woody plants should not be cut hard within 4 to 6 weeks of the first severe freeze, because the cuts have not healed and hardiness drops until they do. Now, a light shear straight after flowering to take the spent stalks off. That is fine everywhere, and the British sources recommend it. It is the hard cut, the shaping cut, that waits for spring. What does spring pruning look like? You wait. And waiting is the hard part, because in March the plant looks dead, and everything in you wants to tidy it. Leave it. Look along the stems until you see small green buds breaking on the gray. That is your signal, and depending where you live, it comes anywhere from late February to mid-April. Then you cut, and you cut with the shape in mind. A low dome, not a flat top, not a box. A dome should water and snow instead of holding it in the middle, which is where an old lavender usually splits open. The rule I would give you is this: tidying after bloom, yes. Reshaping in autumn, never. And if you are ever unsure, doing nothing in November has never killed a lavender. 4 left, and number 1 is the one that will actually change how your plant does. First, one thing. A friend of mine, Henry, put the long version of this way of gardening into a blueprint. It's at henrysecrets.com. I only bring it up because the same question comes to me every week, and that answers it better than I can here. Number 4. This is the bald patch, and it is permanent. The Royal Horticultural Society states it about as plainly as anybody states anything. Lavender does break new growth easily from old stems, so do not cut back into the woody stems. Iowa State agrees in almost the same words. Lavender does not readily produce new growth from old wood. So look at your plant. There is green, leafy growth at the top and outside. Underneath and inside, there is gray, bare, twiggy wood with nothing on it. That gray wood is finished. It is structure. It holds the plant up, and it will never make another leaf, and no amount of pruning, feeding, or hoping brings it back. Which kills a piece of advice you have almost certainly been given, that you can rejuvenate an old woody lavender by cutting it hard. You cannot. NC State says of Spanish lavender that these plants do not like to be cut back to the ground and will often die after doing so. That is not a plant sulking. That is a plant you have removed. So here is the actual rule, and it is one sentence. Never cut where there are no leaves. I learned that on somebody else's plant, which is the cheapest way. A man brought one to the counter in a bucket, somewhere around 2002, wanting to know what had gone wrong. He had read that you cut lavender back hard, and he had cut a beautiful 15-year-old plant down to about 4 inches of bare gray stump. It had leafed out nowhere. There was nothing I could tell him except that it was not coming back, and that the advice he had followed was not wrong so much as missing the only sentence that mattered. How much can you take? Colorado State says about a third off the top. Utah State says you can shear back to half its size. Take somewhere in that range. But every single cut lands in green growth, with leaves still showing below it, which is why 5 and 4 go together. Prune every spring from the day you plant it, and the green never gets away from you. Skip 5 years, and there is nothing left but gray. At that point, the honest answer is a new plant. Number 3, if your ground holds water, do not fight it. Get the plant up out of it. Everything here comes back to one thing. Illinois. It is dampness, cold, that kills lavender. Iowa State. Soil that stays wet over winter gives you plants with a short garden life. Not cold, wet. And there is a study that puts a number on it. Work published last year in Hort Science infected English lavender with a root rot organism and kept the soil saturated. Untreated plants 100% dead in 5 weeks. Saturated ground does not stress lavender, it kills it. So the fix is elevation. Iowa State, raised beds or berms in heavy soil. Penn State's commercial guide, 6-inch raised beds. 6 inches changes the outcome. A berm is easier than it sounds. A low mound of ordinary soil with grit through it, a foot high in the middle, planted on top. Water runs off instead of standing round the crown all February. And now the honest part, which most videos will not tell you. If you garden in Zone 4, northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, much of Maine, Minnesota's Extension Service says no lavender will consistently survive your winter outdoors. Their advice is a pot brought inside. And in the humid southeast, NC State says outright that lavender is generally not up to snuff in a hot, humid climate, and recommends a container. Because a pot is the only way most people ever get the drainage right. And if you go the pot route, get the compost right. That is where people undo it. Ordinary potting compost is built to hold water. Cut it with grit or coarse sand, up to about 1/3 by volume and no more. Use an unglazed clay pot rather than plastic. Porous sides lose water faster, which for this plant is the whole point. And tip the saucer out after watering. A pot standing in water is a small permanent puddle. One warning on the clay: unglazed pots soak up water and crack when it freezes, so that pot comes into the shed for winter whether you planned on it or not. A pot is not a defeat. In 2 large parts of this country, It is the correct answer, and I would rather you had one lavender in a pot than 4 dead ones in a bed. If you want more of this, subscribe. One a week, and it is mostly this: what the universities actually measured, set against what the tag on the pot says. Number 2. 2 reputations this plant has, and only one of them is earned. The one that is true, deer. Rutgers runs the landscape rating that everybody in the business uses, and they put lavender in their top category, rarely damaged. That is as good as their scale goes. NC State says the same. If deer walk through your garden and strip everything to 4 feet, lavender is one of the few things they leave. Oh, you bet that is worth paying for. I will add Utah State's caveat because it is fair. In some areas, deer will browse it. Resistant is not proof. A hungry deer in February will eat things it does not enjoy. And the one that is not true, mosquitoes. Colorado Information Service answers this directly, and their sentence leaves no room. None of them will repel mosquitoes by merely growing in a landscape. Florida's extension put out the same correction. Unless you are extracting the oils and putting them on your skin, the plant sitting in your border is not doing much. The confusion is understandable, because lavender oil genuinely does repel insects. But that is oil, distilled, concentrated, and applied. A living plant 3 feet away from you, with its scent locked up inside the leaves until something crushes them, is not treating your patio. And while we're here, the bees. This is the reputation nobody bothers to push, and it is the best one the plant has. A lavender in flower on a warm afternoon is loud. You can hear it from a few feet away. If you are choosing between this and something with no scent and no nectar, that is the argument, and it is a better one than the mosquito story ever was. Plant lavender because it is beautiful, because it smells like the inside of a linen cupboard when you brush past it, and because the bees will work it from June to August. Do not plant it as bug spray, and do not let anybody sell it to you as bug spray. Number 1, and it is not a job, it is the jobs you stop doing. Iowa State on feeding. In most cases, lavender performs best without fertilization. High nitrogen gives you a big floppy green plant and fewer flowers. Utah State on watering an established plant. Half a gallon every 2 weeks, not a soaking every evening. Half a gallon twice a month. That is the whole of it. No feed, almost no water, poor thin soil, gravel at the base and nothing over the top for winter. Every instinct you have as a gardener is wrong for this one plant, and the people whose lavender thrives are usually the ones who stop thinking about it. The title of this video says, even if you forget it, that is not a joke. Forgetting it is the care. So the whole thing in one line. Lavender does not die of neglect. It drowns in attention. Read the Latin before you buy. Space them wide. Gravel at the base, never bark. Prune every spring, never in autumn, and never where there are no leaves. Skip the fertilizer entirely. Then walk away and let it be a dry hillside shrub, which is the only thing it ever wanted to be. How is yours doing, and what state are you in? Tell me below. The coffee's still on. Come back soon.